Welcome to yet another edition of Red Carpet Trailer Trash. My name is Ian Collins, and joining me as always is the 21st century to my 20th century fox, Mr. Connor Rock.
That was a few things there.
That's
I was
definitely a way of
I
putting
just
it.
I just burnt my tongue on this coffee because I'm drinking it through a straw, so it won't show up. Like you won't hear me like on the recording, and so that's why I was a little. I knew I was gonna have to talk, but I was caught off guard because I was fucking with my burnt tongue. That's a little bit of my life there for you. That's the right response to good work.
Yep.
So
So that's
I feel like we haven't done this in forever. Although it's only been like 2 weeks.
it has only been 2 weeks.
Yeah, speaking of which, how were your holidays?
Meh.
I guess holiday only one happened so far.
Yeah, it was fine. Nothing,
Yeah, that's it.
nothing super exciting happened. Got to see some friends from out of town. That I hadn't seen in a while, but for the most part, it was just kind of uneventful.
Yeah, mine was pretty much the same as every year, and then I had too many drinks with my cousin and almost got strep throat, so I didn't. And if you're wondering how do you almost get strep throat, well, I'll never tell. So
Okay.
that was Christmas, classic Christmas.
Well, this week's episode is going to be a little bit different than usual. So
Well,
usually,
do tell us how.
usually we would get started by reviewing the movie from movie from last week, and then proceeding forward to look ahead to next week. Well, this time we're going to do a decade in review, and because that's going to be sort of the majority of this episode, we're going to start with the lone film of note coming out this weekend that we're aware of, and that would be The Grudge. So, Connor, what is your opinion of The Grudge?
So I'm gonna say what I'd say. I feel like at least once an episode, which I've thought about a little bit today, and this has made me very depressed about the movie situation in our lives right now. But I I just think this is the Hollywood recycling a fairly popular horror movie. They're gonna not do it nearly as well, and it's just I think it's another cash grab because it's just from everything I've seen in the trailers. It looks like they've kind of modernized it to put it in like kind of today's horror movie terms, if that makes sense. Like it has a lot more of a feel of a modern horror movie than the original 2004 Grudge.
Oh, it
Was that
sounds right. I think
2004?
it was
Yeah.
2004.
Okay. And I don't know because I loved The Grudge. I think that is probably maybe one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I was like a grown ass man the first time I saw it. Well, I was 18 years old, so I'm legally a grown ass man. And I was living in freshman dorms at the time, and I had a roommate. And that still, the night I saw The Grudge, like I couldn't sleep because I was so freaked out, just because like the imagery and the audio. And I know that's all now kind of been diluted because it's like been used so many times. But I thought the original was just a great movie. I would say it still holds up today. And I think this is just another remake that doesn't really need to happen. All the scenes. I mean, we could talk about some specific scenes in a minute, but what's your take?
It I mean it's pretty much what you just said. I am interested to see like how they like adjust it, what they do differently, just because it like there has to be something different, right? Like there has to be.
Yeah, I would think they wouldn't just shell out a carbon copy. Although a lot of the scenes look like they're just like technologically updated versions of the scenes we saw in the original Grudge, and maybe that's just to pull audiences in. But yeah, I'd imagine they have to change something.
Yeah, I'll admit I've actually never seen the original Grudge.
Oh, it's a good one.
That's I've heard that it's like one of the scariest. Like that was that and the Ring were the two like peak J horror from what I understand.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, I would definitely say that The Grudge is the scariest movie I've ever seen. So much to the point, like I have not watched it again.
Really?
Not yeah, and like it was on Netflix or Hulu, and I've scrolled past it. In October, I was like, and part of that's because I don't really want to ruin it. Like I'll watch it again and be like, oh man, this sucked. I'm kind of worried about that. But it's also a little bit because I'm like, I don't want to literally be awake because I can't go to sleep. I'm picturing this like ghost lady slithering across my floor making like the croaking noise. I don't want to do that again. I don't need that in my 26-year-old life, 25-year-old life. I don't know how old I
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. All I remember
am.
from The Grudge is basically there's like the demon child that's like crawling around on the ground and muttering in Japanese, and then there's the hair in the corner and just weird stuff like that is all I'm aware of.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is. It's like very pale, like sunken-eyed imagery. There's like a woman too. So the premise is, and I think it's the same for the new one, is this woman goes to give hospice care to like a elderly, I think
Yeah,
elderly woman.
that's how I understood it. That is the extent of my knowledge of the plot, is that she starts
Yeah,
getting haunted.
yeah, and I can't remember. Something is cursed, like either the woman's cursed or the house is cursed, and then the curse moves on to her. Um, that's the premise, and I think that's like I said, the premise of the new one. But it kind of goes out of the house. I mean, there's a scene in the shower with like the back of the hand. I think the scariest imagery from that is she's in like a hospital at some point, and she's like trying to get out because you know the ghost is there, and there's like she's going for the stairway, and the door is just like kind of very cracked open, and then like you hear the noise, and I can't do the noise, but if you think about like you, I would hope people know the Grudge noise.
Yeah, I
I don't
do
know.
know what
It's
the grudge noise is.
yeah. So you hear that, and then just like in that crack of the door is just like the ghost lady's face, and I don't know why that stuck with me. I thought that was terrifying.
I
Um,
always thought that like the hand coming out of the hair was just a terrifying image.
yeah, that I mean that's freaky as shit for sure, and they show that in the trailers a little bit, and it looks like that's like a very it's better done, like because technology allows 15 years later for that to
Yeah.
look better. So that's a positive, I guess, but I still overall I maintain that I don't I'm not super excited about it. Like I wish I could be more, but I really like the original. I mean, Sam Raimi knew what he was doing with the horror genre.
Sam Raimi's the one that redid Evil Dead too, so I'm not opposed to the idea that he could do something really cool with this because I've heard very good things about the remake of Evil Dead.
Wait, is Raimi doing this one as well?
Yeah,
Oh shit. Well then, didn't pay attention to these trailers. That makes me a lot more
or
hopeful
at least
because he
he's
did
one of
the.
the producers. I'm not sure if he's the director, but he has something to
Okay.
do with it.
Well, that's good at least that they're keeping him on board to do something because that makes me feel a lot more confident that it's gonna be different but truly original and also keep the same like tense tense atmosphere and kind of disturbing imagery. I don't now. Okay, I'll have to look out what he's how he's involved because I'm glad to hear that though.
Happy could I could set your mind at ease.
Yeah, and then he started doing Spider-Mans. I guess he did the Grudge in the middle of the Spider-Mans,
Yep,
and then Spider-Man 3 was scary because of how just bad it was.
wasn't great.
Yeah, I really want to like Topher Grace as an actor, but casting him as Eddie Brock was just not. He was not a good villain. It was
It's just weird to have him as Eddie Brock because I always imagined Eddie Brock as like the muscly, or maybe I'm thinking of Flash Thompson. I am thinking of Flash Thompson.
yeah. He's like the more like muscly like goon guy, and
Yeah.
I think Eddie Brock. I don't know too much about the comics and for Eddie Brock, but I think he kind of took a very like he took a few different shapes and sizes and like roles over the course of the Spider-Mans.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I just think maybe I was watching too much that '70s show at the time that I could not take him seriously.
Yeah, that's fair. Sometimes you just get so into one character that it's hard to see them as anything else.
And I also kind of feel like it was just too much. Like I thought the Sandman's like story arc and character were really good, but then just throwing in Venom and then like the Harry Osborn like Hobgoblin, or I don't know if it's actually the Hobgoblin like thing.
I think he's
It
just
felt
supposed
like
to
a
be
lot.
like the replacement for the Green Goblin.
Yeah, because there is a Hobgoblin, but I think it's someone totally different. I don't remember. I
There
got yelled
is,
at by
yes.
somebody. It could have been you. I got yelled at by somebody for mistaking him for the Hobgoblin. So,
You got yelled at by somebody?
well, not actually yelled at, but like corrected by someone who is real into the comics.
Oh, what a
It was like at some
nerd.
party one time. Yeah, I don't remember them really. So was it just it impacted my life. But yeah.
But now that we've veered into Spider-Man, I feel like we've pretty much said we everything we had to say about the Grudge, unless there was anything else you wanted to add.
I mean, honestly, it's 15 years later. I guess it'll be technically 16-ish years. If it is just like a shot-for-shot remake with better CGI, I might not be as mad if they like absolutely like ruined it by trying to change it too much.
It's an interesting approach. I don't really know how I feel about it. I feel like it's unnecessary, but they
I definitely agree
could
with that.
do something with it to make it interesting enough to keep it around.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna walk back what I just said. I don't want a shot-for-shot remake. I want something totally new. I don't know where I stand. I'm gonna stop talking about the Grudge. Let's move into decade in review. Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, we're gonna do a decade in review. So, do we
Maybe
want
not
to
in
go
review.
like sort of like genre by genre, or do we want to do just particular movies that stood out to us over the last decade?
I feel like we should try to do some genre because otherwise this is just gonna be chaos.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's start with comedies.
Comedies. Okay, well, you take point here. Oh, I do have one here. I found it. But go ahead.
Okay, so there's two different things we can do with comedies. We can go into the more specific romantic comedies for like 10 seconds, or we can just do comedies as a whole.
I don't know. What's your 10 seconds on romantic comedies?
Well, there's only like two romantic comedies that like there were a lot of romantic comedies that people apparently really enjoyed in the last decade. Like The Big Sick came out like a year or two ago. That was supposed to be really good. I never
Oh
went
yeah,
and,
I forgot about that.
never went and saw it. I'm not a big romantic comedy guy. I did really enjoy Silver Linings Playbook. Uh,
I have that one. Yep.
that is I it was weird because it wasn't an especially funny one, but it was a very solidly entertaining movie.
Yeah,
And
I
the
don't. I was gonna put that more to like drama, maybe dramedy, but that was not the. I wouldn't have filed that under comedy, but I
yeah,
agree with
it's
you.
that's just sort of where well, that's just how I think it has been classified. I'm not really sure, but what its classification is because it's such a weird movie. But uh, I think that Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence both did excellent jobs in that, and were probably were some of the most compelling performances in a comedy throughout the entire decade. If we're going to classify it as romantic comedy, I think it was just as a movie itself probably the best romantic comedy of the decade.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, I have 11 movies here, and it made the list. Not that my movie taste is like the epitome of good movie taste, but I think it was their like you said, their performances were solid. It was a good story. It was a kind of like dumbed down but still slightly real look at like mental health and mental health issues. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like that movie. I've probably watched it maybe 4 or 5 times.
It's really good. I really like the like I said, it just that's I think that's what Jennifer Lawrence won her Oscar for, but I just think that Bradley Cooper especially stood out as how he did it, being the main focus of the film.
Yeah,
A-
yeah, it was good.
And the only other romantic comedy that I like can think of that I really enjoyed this decade was The Proposal back in like 2010, 2011, with Sandra
What?
Bullock
It's a Sandra Bullock. Yeah,
and Ryan
and who?
Reynolds.
I did not see that.
I just
I
really
forgot
love
it
Ryan
existed.
Reynolds, and so it's not an especially good movie or an especially funny movie, but Ryan Reynolds just knows how to entertain me thoroughly as an actor, and so I just that's sort of my blip about The Proposal. I enjoyed it because I enjoy Ryan Reynolds, and Sandra Bullock is a good actress. So there's that.
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, Sandra Bullock's great. Ryan Reynolds is great, and I don't know. I just never got around to watching it. I think I've heard more about The Proposal like in the last 2 years than when did it come out? You say
Like I want to say it was 2011. Let me
2011. Yeah,
check.
so I think I've heard more about it in the last 2 years than I have in the whole like or not the whole like when it came out because people just kept
Oh wait,
referencing
that
it.
came out in 2009.
Oh, get it out of here!
I think
It's gone.
I think it came. Oh no, it came out in June 19th. Well, that's some bullshit. I
Fucking
was
get it?
lied
Nope.
to. Forget that shit.
Proposal has been
Ignore,
canceled.
delete everything that I just said to compliment it.
Future me, edit all of that out.
The
I'm not gonna do it.
yeah, no. So that was just a waste of time. So moving on to other comedies. There were
So,
some quality comedies that came out in the last decade.
all
Uh,
right, I got one comedy. Well, depending on how you look at it, maybe three, but the other ones are more like I'd call them drama slash. It's kind of like a long Silver Linings Playbook.
yeah.
But the one I got, it might be a little controversial, but I thought 21 Jump Street was great.
Oh, it was hilarious. I actually hadn't thought of that one. It was a very funny movie as a whole. Like as writing goes, as general artistically, I'm not sure it would be like a top film, but just entertainment value and having a lot of laughs. Channing Tatum and um Jonah Hill are just both hilarious. With Rob Riggle coming in for a bit, I think Dave
Yeah,
Franco's in there. It's just a hysterical film.
yeah, I really liked it. I didn't think I was going to like it. I think this is the movie that made me like actually appreciate Channing Tatum as an actor. Or I lied. This is the End made me appreciate Channing Tatum as an actor.
That was another
Like,
movie I was going to bring up. Was This Is the End?
see, I didn't like that one that much. I just thought the Channing Tatum cameo was really funny, and then like when Michael Cera dies was funny, and that's really all I remember from
Well,
it.
I very much enjoyed seeing Michael Cera die because, as I feel like we've discussed before on this podcast, I just don't like Michael Cera.
I'm sure you have like a 5 to maybe 8 minute like monologue about how much you hate Michael Cera. That's well, it might not be that long, but it's on one of these episodes.
Yeah, but I enjoyed that film. Unless you want to talk more about 21 Jump Street, I'm gonna dive into This Is the End.
No, I mean like it's just yeah, you're right. It's got a good cast. I mean Brie Larson was in it, Ice Cube. Like you were right, Rob Riggle, Dave Franco, Jonah Hill, and it was unexpectedly funny. And then the second one was okay, I guess, but the first one is what I really want to talk about because like I agree with you. It's not a great movie by any standards, but it's solid and entertainment, and it's one of the movies. I guess this is how I should preface pretty much all these movies on my list. They're like movies that I wouldn't mind if I just had to like watch them like once a week. As of right now, I don't know if I actually could watch them once a week,
Well,
but
that would end very
I think
quickly.
that would kill anything. I think,
Yeah.
but that's how I kind of put it. Like I don't mind watching these movies over and over again, and I've probably watched that like 2 or 3 times, and I kind of want to watch it again now. But on to you. What were you gonna say?
So this is the end. I thought that the chemistry amongst all the people there really helped it because they are friends in real life. Excuse me. And so it was very much just sort of them trying to write as themselves and portraying themselves to a little like piped up level. Danny McBride as the villain is spectacular. James Franco playing like an over the top kind of creepy version of himself. Jonah Hill being a condescending bastard. It was just it definitely took some risks, but I think that it really hit on just about all of them, and it was different, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Uh, so,
That's fair.
so did you have any other?
No, not for comedy. I think if we don't get into the other ones that I might classify as like sort of comedies, I'll talk about them eventually, but nothing like pure.
Well, then I'll go on. I also really thoroughly enjoyed We're the Millers. The We're the Millers is one movie that it was exactly my style of humor. Jason Sudeikis plays the drug dealer that has to smuggle drugs out of Mexico with his fake family of Jennifer Aniston, Emma Roberts, and some kid who was in The Maze Runner and Midsommar.
Some kid who is in the Maze Runner.
I he's been in a lot of stuff, but I just have never learned what his name was.
All right.
Nick Offerman also plays like a DEA agent, if I'm not mistaken. But it just thoroughly has like a very smarmy, very sarcastic sort of humor that just makes me laugh every time I watch it. That's where the old joke, no regrets, really, not even a single letter.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never seen that, but I've seen a lot of like memes from it.
Yeah, no, it's just right up my alley of humor, and so I thoroughly enjoyed it.
His name is
Um,
Will Poulter. He's the guy from Bandersnatch, who is like
yeah,
wrong path or whatever, wrong
hmm
path, and he kills himself because that was a whole trippy fucking like 2.5 hours of my life.
yeah, it was. Trying to actually this year there was a comedy that came out called The Art of Self Defense that I thought was just hysterically funny.
I think you
It's
talked about this one. Isn't this like the kind of like drier? This is like
it
a
is it is basically delivered as serious, but the it's very dry and delivered as serious, almost like monotone, almost emotionless throughout. And that's actually why it's so funny because of what's going on is so ridiculous and kind of painful because it's about an accountant who gets mugged at night and then he ends up deciding that he needs to learn to protect himself, or needs to protect himself. So he goes to buy a gun, and then he like learns about all the statistics about ending up having it used on yourself and the risk of dying from a gun related injury and that sort of stuff. And so he decides to learn karate instead, and it's he just embraces it whole hog in just an utterly ridiculous fashion. But Jesse Eisenberg plays it so straight that I think he's the only noteworthy, like recognizable actor in it. But he plays it straight, and it is hysterically funny, in my opinion.
yeah. I think you talked to me about this before when we were at that like burger place with Pat and Kate,
Yeah,
and that's like when we decided we were gonna do this. That was the same night when we decided we were gonna waste an hour of our life every week. Um,
hold on. We're also wasting an hour of the life of anyone else who's watched it, who's listening to us.
it's true, and I used to waste like another 2 hours of my life until I really cut corners editing this. But it sounds good. You make me want to watch that. I'm not actually gonna try to make a point to see it somewhere.
It is admittedly like very niche and may not be everyone's style. I've already done my review of Jojo Rabbit in a previous episode, but that's another great comedy from this decade. The Would you say that the Grand Budapest Hotel is a comedy?
That was yeah, I'd probably say it's a comedy, and it was so close to making my list. I just didn't feel comfortable talking about it because I haven't seen it in forever.
I love Wes Anderson. I think I've only seen three of his movies, but they are, he has that, I think it's called twee, is the style that most people use to describe him. It's just so quirky and fun, and I think that he just delivers thoroughly in Grand Budapest Hotel, and having Ray Fiennes as the maybe not main character, but like central figure. Edward Norton comes in as the police officer. It's the cast is excellent, and the delivery of all the jokes are great. And I it's one of Wes Anderson's. Granted, I haven't seen many of them, but I really enjoyed this film, and it made me want to see more Wes Anderson films.
Yeah, I think it's his best one, or it's the one I like the best out of. And I've only seen Moonrise Kingdom, The Life Aquatic, this, and shit. What was that other one? It doesn't matter. But I
I've
think
heard the Royal Tenenbaums is supposed to be his best one.
I haven't seen that one, so that might hold true still. But I think that this was just a great movie. I agree with everything you said, and I Wes Anderson's his style is just like that's what I really liked about Moonrise Kingdom was like I don't know how to put it into words, and maybe twee is what they call it. I've never heard that, but I don't I don't run in these circles. It's something really unique, and I'm glad that you mentioned this because I think it would have been not a crime, but a lesser crime, a misdemeanor to not mention at least one Wes Anderson film. And we might mention two.
I'm gonna mention another one because that was the last. Unless, do you want to say The Big Short is?
What was The Big Short?
That was about the financial crisis. That was the one with Brad Pitt and
Uh,
Steve Carell,
I
Ryan Gosling.
yeah, maybe kind of. I don't know. I wouldn't put that into comedy.
Okay. We can mention it later. Then, before we move on to like dramas, let's go to animation. Did you have any animated films you wanted to
No, but
mention for this?
we might as well segue. I do have a few. We might as well segue right into what you're about to say because we were just talking about Wes Anderson.
In that case, we gotta mention Isle of Dogs. I loved Isle of Dogs. I'd say it's probably my second. I think it might be my second favorite animated film from the decade. I found it incredibly entertaining. The voice acting work, that cast was just stacked. Scarlett Johansson, Edward Norton, Liam Neeson, just everyone was in it. It's such a unique. Once again, it's Wes Anderson, so he has a unique style. But the animation style in and of itself was also unique, so that was fun. I just loved this movie.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. You talk about it all the time though, so I feel like I need to. It was kind of like it was like claymation almost, but like more with dolls than clay figures.
Yeah, it was what is it?
Stop
Motion
motion,
capture?
stop motion, motion
Yeah,
capture, one
stop
of
motion,
those.
that's what it was.
But yeah, I'm looking at some pictures of it now, and yeah, I that's another one I need to make a point to see. I think this is just gonna be the movies I try to watch like in the next couple months. The list is this episode.
Okay, was there one that you had in mind that you wanted to mention?
So I'm pretty sure we're gonna mention the same one, so I'll save that in a second. But I also had the Lego Movie, and
Lego Movie was a good one. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm definitely okay with you throwing it on this.
yeah, I just thought the original one it was a big old Lego commercial, but Playmobil should have stolen a little more from the book because it worked. It was funny. I mean, Will Arnett's Batman I think is one of the most entertaining one versions of Batman, and two just characters to be like played. I never saw the original or not the original the like the follow up Lego Batman movie,
It was okay.
but I think and I think it was Chris shit.
Chris Pratt
Yeah,
played
Chris Pratt.
the main character.
Yeah, I want to say Chris Pine for whatever reason, but I was like, that's not right. But yeah, then Chris Pratt is Emmett or whatever, and I'm sure there were more people that I can't
Will
remember
Ferrell
now.
played.
Oh yeah, he was the bad guy,
Yeah,
like Mr. Man or whatever. I don't remember
it
enough,
was
but
like a corporate boss or something.
yeah, I remember going into the Lego Movie being like, this is gonna be dumb as shit, and walking out of there being like, that was a surprisingly good story with surprisingly like convincing deliveries of all the characters, and I thought it was unique and cool.
Would you go
Like,
so far as to say that everything is awesome
oh no,
about that
I
film?
would not go that far.
Okay, that's fair.
uh,
So, did you have any other in mind
but
for
yeah, I mean,
animation?
obviously, Into the Spider Verse is
Yeah,
up there, and that's I think. I mean, it already won like best animation or best
yeah,
animated film or whatever.
that did win over. That did win over Isle
Isle
of
of Dogs.
Dogs,
Yeah.
and I actually have them very like neck and neck. But I think that just the animation, because it is animation, I think that it was such a unique animation style, and just as a film, I think just artistically, it was without question the best.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that is just a gorgeous movie. You've seen that one. I forget what it is. It's somebody. It's like a Twitter feed or something that goes through and just stops it in every frame, and they're all absolutely beautiful. Like they didn't skimp out at all in animating that, and it
I
just.
hadn't seen that, but that sounds like it'd be really trippy.
I mean, yeah, a little bit because some of them are like kind of strange, but like it's all just very clean and just because like the movie was so colorful and the performances in that movie were great too. I think that is one of the best like Spider-Man. Uh,
It is the best Spider-Man movie that's been made, in my opinion. Maybe
yeah,
Spider-Man 2,
no, I mean
but
I think that's absolutely the best Spider-Man movie that's been made. But I think it's one of the most like accurate portrayals of Spider-Man too, as far as like Peter Parker goes, and then Miles Morales. I don't know anything about like Spider-Man Noir or whatever the hell John Mulaney's
Noir. Oh,
pig
the
boy.
fact that they got John Mulaney to play Spider what was it?
Spider
Spider
Ham.
Ham,
Yeah.
and they got Nicolas Cage to play Spider Noir was spectacular.
Yeah, it was great. So
Um
I'd go as far. I think that's my favorite. I think that's the best animated movie of the decade.
I think that that's an easy sell. I will say that unless you had anything else, though, I'm gonna just mention a few Pixar movies because you can't really Disney and Pixar movies that came out this decade, because you can't really do anything without mentioning
Yeah,
Disney and Pixar.
that's fair. I kind of overlooked them all because like I don't know, some of them are probably on there. But yeah, go ahead.
So my personal favorite of the Disney movies that came out this decade would be Coco. I thought that just the story itself, it was a little predictable, but just the music, the story, it was compelling, it was entertaining. I think it's like my second or third favorite Pixar movie that they've made. Toy Story 3 came out in 2010. Uh,
It's
that's uh,
allowed.
that is my favorite of the Toy Story trilogy, which is a controversial opinion apparently.
Well,
Um,
my favorites too, and apparently that's a bullshit, horrible opinion. So.
Yeah, no, I am the person that says that that is a bullshit, horrible opinion. For those that are curious, um, the Incredibles 2, which is I'm including just because it's the sequel to my favorite Pixar movie. Uh, it was okay. It was probably, I would say it's the best of the sequels, uh, and at least since Toy Story 2, but I would actually say it's the best Pixar sequel that they've had.
That's
Um,
I don't really remember it. I think I was very inebriated when I watched it.
that sounds like you. Uh,
But I have
and
generally good feelings.
and then I think we would be remiss not to mention Frozen, which also came out in 2013. It was a very solid princess movie that Disney hasn't really been able to tell effectively. I think Tangled actually may have come out. Did that come out in 2010? That's another popular Disney
Uh,
princess movie.
yeah, Tangled
But
was 2010.
So those are two Disney princess movies that came out that were very well received, very well liked. Um, what about the Princess and the Frog?
That was 2009. Fuck it, it's
Ah,
not allowed.
not allowed. Okay, so Frozen was like a just a cultural phenomenon, and that it's worth noting. It was a very good movie with excellent music to it, great soundtrack. But I wouldn't put it as my like top three, or I'm not even sure if I'd put it top five animated pictures of the decade. This was a good decade for animated movies.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was. I did.
and then I think if unless you have anything else to add, I would think we can move on to sci-fi.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. So along the same lines as like Frozen because of its cultural phenomenalism, I think the first sci-fi, I guess it's sci-fi whatever. I have the Avengers on my list just because of what that like spurred
For
into.
sci-fi, if we're gonna do that, I think we should just do superhero movies then, because that's in and of itself so much of the movies that have come out for the last decade.
Yeah, I mean I just included the Avengers and then I mean there's definitely been some great Marvel movies like but I didn't really think it's worth running through all of them.
Yeah, I would just say that if for Marvel movies, I would say that the Avengers was, like you said, a cultural occurrence, and it was the first time something like that had ever been done. So it's definitely worth acknowledging. And then, in the same way, not Infinity War, Endgame, which came out this year, the highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah.
It was a cultural event. It was such a cultural event that it was bracketed in by a week in each direction of nobody releasing a movie because they didn't want to have to try to compete with it. It was a monster at the box office. Everyone wanted to see it. It was the culmination of, I believe it was 23 movies, 3,000 minutes of screen time. I love you 3,000.
It makes sense.
Yep. And it was just an event.
Because otherwise, that's just a fucking weird thing to say.
Yep. But I'll also throw out my personal favorite of the Marvel movies. Winter Soldier came out this decade.
You know, I really didn't like that one at first, but upon rewatching, I that was a good movie. That was a really good movie.
I loved that movie.
If we're going with personal favorites, I think mine's Ragnarok.
That's a
Just
good one.
because I like the tone shift. I really enjoyed like it
It's
made me
it
like Thor again.
it's nice to see like a very like a funnier like lighter side movie. Also, the only Thor movie that was good. Don't at me.
No, that's true. That's real. That's
And then, if we want to talk about superhero movies that were not in the Marvel MCU, I would throw out that Logan and The Dark Knight Rises were both excellent movies. I think Logan was the best superhero movie that came out this decade.
I forgot about Logan. That yeah, I would put that on my list. That's a good one.
That one was excellent. Deadpool, an R-rated superhero movie, which is uncommon, and that's I suppose we could have included that as a comedy. Just it was so
Oh yeah,
different, so
shit, I forgot
unique.
about Deadpool too. Both of those, yeah. I absolutely agree. Deadpool like changed the game, and luckily there weren't too many like imposters.
Yeah, Dark Knight Rises, finishing off the Christopher Nolan trilogy. Christopher Nolan's just excellent. I think it doesn't get the recognition it deserves because of how good The Dark Knight was and just how just perfect of a movie it was. But Dark Knight Rises is still an overall very good film. And then, what would you say was the best DC movie that came out from the DCEU?
I mean, I haven't seen Aquaman, and I've heard that's okay, but I think it's got to be Wonder Woman.
I was that's what I was gonna say too. I think it has to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprisingly really good movie. Shit, you know what? I want to I want to take that again, and I should have, in all seriousness, been like, it was Suicide Squad, because I wanted to maybe give you a heart attack.
I would have just said that you were lying. I would have called your
Yeah,
bullshit.
that's true. No one can have that opinion. But yeah, Wonder Woman was just great. I mean, I still maintain that it gets a little cheesy at the end. Like, this dude she met for a little bit, like, teaches her how to love or whatever bullshit it was. But
Yeah.
it was all in all a really good movie. It was a surprising gem in the DC crap pit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now that we've gone through superhero movies, let's continue on to sci-fi after that little diversion.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else I would. Well, okay, so sci-fi, I guess. What I want to say her. Are we gonna can we call that sci-fi?
I'd say that's sci-fi. I
Okay.
actually never saw her. I've heard good things, but let me know what you think.
I really liked it. I think Joaquin Phoenix did a great job. I mean, I've heard a few people kind of compare it to Joker in the sense of like it's very like him playing off himself, except in this you get Scarlett Johansson as an operating system that he like falls in love with, and then they like have like a transcendence and swoop away into the fucking atmosphere. Um, but I don't know. I think it was really good. His performance was great. Scarlett Johansson was a believable operating system. There's a kind of weird sex scene, but other than that, it was really good. I would recommend it.
I would say that my favorite sci-fi film of the last decade, it would have to be Ex Machina.
Was that this decade?
I believe it was. I'll check, but I'm pretty sure Ex
Oh
Machina
yeah, it was
came out.
2014. Damn.
That movie, I thought that all the performances were great. Um, it was it was such a unique story and one I hadn't heard before, and just the idea of applying a Turing test to become the basis for the plot of a film. It was so unique and something that was actually new and different that I just loved it. I didn't think it got enough attention when the awards rolled around, but I think that that was probably the best one of the decade.
Yeah, I don't remember it quite well enough to speak to it, but I do remember thinking fondly about it. Um, I think some other mentions was Arrival. I don't want to
Yeah,
talk too much
that's
about it, but it was pretty good. I liked it.
I have not seen Arrival, so I cannot say much about it.
And then I think other than that, I also have The Martian.
The Martian would be up there too. Yeah, Matt Damon. It's a very like uniquely funny sci-fi kind of, especially considering the subject matter.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've talked about that before on here, but you got a lot of that credit goes to Andy Weir, just how he wrote the
Yeah.
book, and Matt Damon just played that character perfectly. I
Hmm.
mean,
I think he won a Golden Globe for best actor in a comedic role.
oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd believe it because that was a great movie. Um, true to the book, which was pretty true to science, and it was just a really fun Mars movie, even though it should have been depressing as shit.
Yeah, it really should have been, shouldn't it?
That's all on my list though.
There was also Gravity, which was an
Yep.
interesting movie where it was just sort of it was just Sandra Bullock, and it's an interesting approach, but it's not. It was not something that it was good on an artistic level, but it was not something that really captured my imagination as much. Um, would you consider Mad Max Fury Road to be a
I think
sci-fi?
yeah, it was definitely sci-fi, and that I was gonna put that on the list, but I don't know. I hesitated. And I didn't.
Tom Hardy is, if not, he's. I would say he's a top five actor working today, and all you have to do is look at Dunkirk to see that he relays so much information with his eyes, and he. This was this. I think this may have been his coming out party, or maybe not his coming out party, but something where he was on the main stage and people were showing him the respect he deserved. But if we want to talk about his coming out party, I think that we should finish off with the last sci-fi movie, Inception, with Christopher Nolan, which is a close runner-up to Ex Machina in my eyes for best sci-fi movie of the decade.
I'm gonna be controversial here, and like I get Inception, like I get why it's so popular, but I don't know, I didn't like it that much. Like nothing, it was really good once, but I don't think I'd want to watch it again.
That's fair. Well, I'm not big on rewatching a lot of movies. There's a few movies that having a movie that's rewatchable and one that's just generally good is different. Like I saw Uncut Gems over the weekend, and it was very good, but I would not want to watch it again at all. Okay, so moving on next, do we want to do action movies before we get to the drama?
Yeah, and actually, hold on, let me just throw in because I wanted to do a little bit on horror movies. Do you have any of those?
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about horror movies for some
Okay, I
reason.
I, I was just gonna throw them in if you didn't have them.
I think I was gonna leave that for last so we can make it Connor's spooky corner.
Oh shit! All right, yeah, that's fine. So let's get into action movies. I only have one because I've said this multiple times. I'm not a big action movie guy, so I only have one that I can think of. There might be some more that you mentioned that I agree with, and the action movie, I think it can fit under there. But I have Django Unchained.
Uh, I wouldn't have thought of that as an action movie, but I agree with you that it's one of the best of the decade. I've said before that I love the Quentin Tarantino films. Django's probably towards the bottom of that list, but it's a list that I don't. There isn't a bad choice of the movies I've seen. Django Unchained is a great one. I would throw the John Wick trilogy on there as probably the best action from this decade.
Yeah, I forgot about John Wick. I agree. I only saw the first one though, or like half of the first one, but yeah, you get the gist.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Uh, I I don't know which one I like the most because it gets a little more over the top as it proceeds. But I think I like the first one the best. But it's just such an entertaining. It's exactly what you want from an action movie. Then there were some Mission Impossible movies that I didn't end up seeing. Uh, and I think the only other action movie sort of thing is sort of like a heist movie, and it just doesn't seem like it falls under drama. Would be Baby Driver. Did you see Baby Driver?
Oh no, but I've heard mixed things about it. 'Cause isn't it like very like musical?
It's very. It's not very musical, but the soundtrack is very like factored into like the mood, and it's a big part of the film.
Yeah, yeah, that's maybe that's what I was talking about. Like it's not like the soundtrack almost like narrates.
To an extent, yeah, but I think it's done really well, and that it's something that's definitely if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching. Um, a lesser known one that came out was Snowpiercer.
Yeah,
That's
I've heard that's really good. It's
it
almost like
is it is a great movie. I didn't know it existed until a couple years ago when my friend told me it was on Netflix. Definitely worth the watch.
that's like
Um,
almost like horror or thriller,
yeah,
right?
it's sort of a weird one like that. And
Yeah.
then I'd also throw Sicario. I haven't seen it, but I that's probably one that people would probably
The fuck is
want to have.
Sicario?
It's the movie about the uh, Mexican hitman that helps Emily Blunt and Josh Brolin.
I don't think I've even heard of this.
I believe it was nominated for Best Picture in 2015.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, me not hearing of something isn't like groundbreaking, so
Yeah.
I'll take your
Oh
word
man,
for
and
it.
then Drive came out in 2011.
Yeah, I thought about putting that on my list, but I don't know, I didn't love it.
Okay, let's move on to dramas.
All right, so I got quite a few here. Well, three. Um, and I mean, they're not super like I don't know. What are you classifying as dramas? These are more like these are my like floaters that I guess are more just like story movies.
Well, I'm gonna include biopics in here too, because like you're gonna have stuff like Lincoln and Wolf of
Okay.
Wall Street, Theory of Everything, Imitation Game, like some that sort of stuff is all gonna fall in here. All great movies that are definitely worth a watch.
Okay. I have well, so we'll put a few in there. So these are maybe lesser known movies. So the first one I want to throw in is The Kids Are All Right. That was like kind of I don't remember when it came out. Um, but it's Mark Ruffalo. I think Josh Hutcherson's in it. Hutcherson, the dude from the
I
Hunger
believe it's
Games.
Hutchinson.
Yeah.
I'll effort this. But
um,
what was
but it's just the premise of the movie is just like this like lesbian couple and their two kids and they're having like marriage problems and then one of them like fucks Mark Ruffalo and nothing really happens in the movie but I really like it. I think Mark Ruffalo's performance was really good. I think it's Julianne Moore is one of the
Julianne Moore?
moms.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked it up on IMDb.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's just like a good, story. It's if you got an hour and a half to kill or whatever, it's a solid, just story. That's the best I can sell it as.
I just saw something that I should have included under action films. Hell or High Water and Logan Lucky are two sort of like Western style heist movies that are really good that I think should be thrown into the action movie. Definitely worth a watch. But if we're going to do dramas, I think that potentially my favorite movie of the year, of the decade, and this could be like a sort of a weird one, but I absolutely loved Birdman with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I was thinking about putting that on here too. I did. I really enjoyed that. I mean,
Just the way it was shot, where there were more cuts in in the 30-second trailer than there were in the actual movie.
yeah. Well, yeah, because they like
It's
hit him and the camera spins or whatever. It was shot very
long
interestingly.
shots, and then like
Yeah.
when it fades, and he just gave such a personal performance, and just who was the actor? Who was the Inarritu? I don't
What the?
Alejandro, Mexican director, did sort of a magical realism, which is it was so effectively done. Emma Stone, Michael Keaton, Edward Norton, Zach Galifianakis, strangely enough, all just excellent in the film. Effective, really conveyed their personality well, their characters well. The interaction he had with the critic in the bar was just, it was tense but also entertaining. Just I adored this that movie. It was without question my favorite of the decade.
Yeah, Burma was pretty good. It was. I agree. So my next movie I got under the drama category is this is actually my favorite movie. Like this is a movie I could watch over and over and over again, and you're not gonna like it because it's a coming of age story. But I want you to hear me out. It's called Wish I Was, or no, that's the next one I talked to. I'll talk to that one next. But it's called The Way Way Back, and
Oh, is that the one with
it literally
Josh Peck?
no, that's the whackness.
Oh, okay. What's the way back?
It's about like this kid whose mom just like found a new boyfriend and they're going
Is
up.
that Steve Carell?
Yeah, so this is you got
Okay.
Tony Collette, Steve Carell, Allison Janney, Amanda Peet, Sam Rockwell, Jim Rash, Nat Faxon, Maya Rudolph is in it. Like it's just got a killer cast and it's just solidly entertaining because it's also this is the first movie, maybe one of the only movies that I've seen where Steve Carell is like a very serious role. Like he's like the dick new mom's boyfriend. He's not like
Mm-hmm.
being wacky Steve Carell, like Dinner for Schmucks Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Um, but and then Sam Rockwell plays like a really big part in it too, and I love Sam Rockwell. And it's just it is a coming of age story, but it's just there's so much more going on in it, and the cast is just phenomenal. And I think it won, or not like big awards, but it won a few like through Sundance or something. And it's just a good movie. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I can't say I'm super interested in it just because it is a coming of age, but it's I would definitely be willing to hear it out. Other movies because we are starting to run a little long. Granted, is the and we want to get to Connor's spooky corner to discuss the horror movies.
So the last one, I'll just say a few sentences on it. I was Wish I Was Here. That's like Zach Braff's second movie. I think it's his
Oh
second
yeah.
movie. It's pretty
Hmm.
good. Worth checking out. Uh, I mean, think like Garden State, but like a little less hipster and more
Yeah,
like.
no, I've actually seen that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I had a good time with it.
Yeah, the just going through some of the other ones worth noting. Uh, the Social Network, Jesse Eisenberg was excellent in there. True Grit was the Coen brothers' take on it. And that was another western.
Yeah.
Moneyball and The Help came out
Oh, I
in
forgot about The Help.
2011.
Good catch. Because
Yeah.
I totally forgot about The Help.
I think I already mentioned Lincoln when I was listing the list of like four that were Dallas Buyers Club is one that a lot of people forget, but I thoroughly enjoyed Matthew McConaughey's performance in that. I don't think it was actually good enough to steal the Oscar away from Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street, but apparently they disagreed with me. Um, Anything else that stands out? We already mentioned The Big Short. Just a thoroughly entertaining movie that it was a bit jumbled at places, but I really like Adam McKay's style in doing that. Um, Darkest Hour, I'd say, was a close second to Wolf of Wall Street when it comes to best performance of the decade. Granted, I did not see Lincoln, but I think that the two best performances were for leading actor had to be Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street, and then I adored Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour. Dunkirk didn't get enough play, in my opinion, as I think it should have won the Best Picture back in 2017. I think that may have been everything I had for dramas, unless there was something that you wanted to throw out there.
No, I guess maybe this is action, maybe this is a drama. I think it's worth it to just mention it, but Lawless was a really good movie. That was like 2011, maybe. Maybe it was later than that.
That's the Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy
Yeah,
about
like
the just
moonshining.
yeah.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it, but I'm not sure if I'd put it in sort of the best of for this decade.
that might be fair. Maybe I need to reevaluate. I haven't watched it in a while. I just remember being very
It was very
impressed.
compelling and very entertaining, but I mean, it was Shia LaBeouf as the star, so it's sort of iffy.
Yeah, there's somebody else. I mean, there were like three brothers that were kind of the main characters, and that movie actually made me like Tom Hardy a lot,
Yeah.
and it was that one for whatever reason. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for all that stuff for dramas.
Okay,
The
and
return of
now
the
we can
spooky corner.
Connor's spooky corner.
Last spooky corner of 2019. Whew. So I only got two horror movies. I don't think a lot of them deserve to be on like best of the decade, even in the horror genre. So I got Hereditary because that was the first horror movie I've watched in a long time that was just genuinely like scary, creepy, took turns you didn't really see coming, and was just kind of original. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought about putting like I think I won't say that because I think you're gonna put these on the list, and I will agree with you. And then the other one I have is Suspira or Suspiria. I don't really know how to pronounce it. It's like a remake of a French, don't quote me on that, horror film from like the 80s. Maybe it was longer than that. Don't quote me on any of that. Um, but it's about like a dance academy that's run by a coven of witches. And it's one of those like real kind of slow burn. Like there's very few scenes where like scary things that are happening, but they're like very much alluded to. And then the ending is just ridiculous.
I've heard of it. I haven't actually seen it. It's something that I'm glad that you mentioned it because I would like to see it. Before I forget, Black Swan. was a movie that was very big at the start of the decade that probably should have been mentioned. But just some of the big movies that came out, I think that it really has to be mentioned. The Conjuring, Insidious, and Sinister.
Yeah, those were what I was
All
gonna say like a minute ago.
all three of those were sort of at the start of the decade, and all three of those, some people may be opposed to throwing Sinister in there, but I think that they all pretty much created this sort of paranormal other entity sort of theme that the rest of the decade would follow, because they were all three of them I thought were thoroughly good movies.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that, and they shifted us away from like the found footage paranormal activity. Like horror movies have to be absolutely true, this is real, and you have to be scared the whole time, into a more like, well, we can tell a story with horror movies as well. Like
yeah,
I think they
and
were like that thinking was a big bridge into what gave us the It's.
yeah, yeah, and I will say that I think the first It was also very entertaining, very thoroughly. Well, I keep saying thoroughly well done, but there are just so many good movies from this last decade. It's hard to focus on all of them. So movies that I didn't get a chance to see, but I've heard were excellent horror movies, would be It Follows, Get Out, and The Witch.
I forgot about. Okay, so I'll speak to that real quick. It Follows was really good. Um, Not a lot happens, but just like the idea of it, and there are some like genuinely terrifying concepts slash scenes. Get Out was fine. It was good. I think I've said this before. I don't know if it deserves the like super praise it's gotten because it like
Mm-hmm.
wasn't super original and it wasn't super scary. It was good though. The Witch was total crap in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah,
I've heard that it was like great at creating tension.
I mean, I would, but I will agree. It might have created tension, but I don't think it created like horror tension. The whole time you're just like, this family, like, it's just full of dicks. Like this dad sucks, and then you got like the kids running around, and they're all speaking fucking ye olde gibberish, and nothing happens in it until like the last like 10 minutes, and I'd be fine. But I don't think they did the build up well at all. Like I wouldn't call it tension. I would call it more of like a realistic look into how shitty like whatever time period that living was.
Gotcha. And I will say that I did not get a chance to see Hereditary, which I've seen is probably widely considered to be the best horror movie of the decade. So my favorite horror movie of the decade is not that. Although I did like his follow up Midsommar, but I think that The Babadook was my favorite horror movie of the decade.
Yeah, I need to give that one a rewatch because I think I wasn't appreciating it as like a film when I watched it. I was still looking for like horror movie scares. Like I came in looking for something like Insidious, and then it turned out to be like a much deeper movie than that.
I thought that the sort of unsettled nature and the just the tone of the movie throughout that it created and sort of the feeling that you had while watching it, I thought that it was probably the scariest movie that I watched of the decade, and it was just unsettling, and I it was tense when the Babadook started appearing in the background. I haven't enjoyed it as much on watching it back through rewatching, but just the very first time, it just left me just I really appreciated how it was done, and I was just unsettled and didn't want to turn off the lights. It was meh.
And now it's fucking Pennywise. It's happened.
Yep.
That's what Twitter told me. All right. So any last thoughts? We are running kind of long here, so I was gonna wrap it up. Unless you want to throw in anything you forgot. Any?
Well, we do need to say that I will actually forfeit over to you, the horror expert on this. What would you classify The Grudge as?
This new one coming out?
Would you classify it as red carpet
Oh,
or trailer trash?
dude, I don't know. I kind of still am leaning towards trailer trash, even with Sam Raimi's involvement, and I think that just comes a lot from. I don't see the necessity for it because like the first one's so good, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to. I know I've said like 14 different things about this, but I think these are my actual like digested, thought out thoughts. Is I don't think they're going to be able to spin it in such a way or create something new enough while kind of maintaining its roots that it's going to be nearly as good, and I think it's just going to come out being an unnecessary remake. But I hope I'm wrong. I'll say
Yep.
that.
Well, next week we'll finally get around to Star Wars, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll make a point to see it by then. Um, but
We'll have for the first time ever, I believe, we will have a review where we have both seen the film.
I saw The Irishman.
You saw like the first half of The Irishman.
That's true. I did. I saw the first half, which I finished, by the way, since we've recorded that. And I agree. I think the last like 20 minutes of that movie, some of the best, like just like guttural. I don't even know how to describe it. Just like seeing how lonely he ends up. Like he doesn't even know
Oh,
it's Christmas.
it's such a
It's
gut punch.
yeah.
It's painful.
But like I wanted to feel bad for him. But I was like, this guy was a piece of shit. So it really wasn't. I don't know. But it was really good. You're absolutely right on that. Okay,
And
we're,
then
oh shit.
we just for the record, the I think that we'll probably discuss the best of 2019 more specifically in the Oscar preview episode that we'll do.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And that's also letting you know, Connor, that we're doing an Oscar preview episode.
Yeah, this is news to me. And then yeah, we should talk some about like uncut gems and all that. I don't know. Who even knows what the format of this is anymore? The last two episodes have been so like different.
Who
We'll just
knows?
we're just gonna float around. All right, I'm not gonna say our names and all that bullshit again. They know who we are. Follow us on Twitter, RCTT Podcast. Um, yeah, that's it. Until next time.
Until next time?